friends, welcome back. My name's Ramon. How are you today? So there is a new sunscreen on the block, and that in itself isn't the exciting part, but rather it's a new sunscreen that's for sensitive skin, that's fragrance, essential oil, and alcohol free. But not only that, it's introducing a brand new UV filter into the market, which is really exciting because I don't feel like that happens very frequently. So with that, today we're talking about the new Avene Intense Protect SPF 50+ sun cream for very sensitive skin. But before we get into it, I'm gonna ask that you hit the subscribe button, notification bell, so that you know when I post more skincare, sunscreen, and fancy related content on my channel. Give this video a thumbs up, and down below in the comments, tell me, are you mad hyped for this? Are you gonna get your hands on it? Have you tried it already? And what are your experiences with it? What are your thoughts on this new UV filter? Sound off. I also wanna say that I was able to purchase this thanks to the donations from my patrons on my Patreon. Again, on my Patreon, I give sneak peeks, I ask for recommendations, and also give a lot of behind the scenes looks at what's going on my YouTube channel and my Instagram as well. If you are able to donate and if it's within your means, I really appreciate the support, just because all my sunscreen reviews are still pretty much, for the most part, funded out of my own pocket with my own coin, so any support is appreciated. It'll be down below in the description box as well. So we got a brand new sunscreen from Avene, which I think overall is a brand I have yet to really try products from, period. So this is the first Avene product on this channel, so let's celebrate that. This just launched, if I'm not mistaken, just because I know when I finally saw it go live, it wasn't available even on Boots. I actually had to order this from a Spanish pharmacy. Link for that's gonna be in the description box. But this is now available at Boots at £20 for 150 ml. She's a big girl. But that's only because it says intended for face and body. This is SPF 50+. It does say it is broad spectrum with very high protection values, but it doesn't specify a UVPF value, which I did double and triple check for on the front and back. People got on my case about the P20 Kids sunscreen because it did specify a UVAPF value in small print on the back. This don't got it. It does also say though that this is for sensitive skin, specifically for babies, kids, and adults, and that it is very, very water resistant. Looking at a little bit of the claims from Avene themselves, this is formulated with our innovative and unique sun filter, TriAsorB, which I'm gonna break down in a little bit, that was created after 20 years of Pierre Fabre research. Inspired by the natural photoprotective properties of melanin, TriAsorB is the first organic sun filter to offer an ultra broad spectrum protection against UVB, UVA, but also against high energy visible light as well, blue light. Blue light from the sun has been proven to be harmful for the skin, hence the need to be protected from it, which got some thoughts about, but we'll get into that in a second. Explaining how I apply the sunscreen in the video, you're gonna be seeing application footage from the few days of testing that I did for the video. I apply a 1/4 teaspoon to cover my face, my ears, and my neck. I work it in, let it sit down for at least 5 minutes before I go on top of it with anything else if I'm wearing anything else for that specific day. I do also, because this is a chemical sunscreen, reapply this on top of makeup for one of the days so that you do see how this does apply over makeup, and then I do have a bare face and reapplication day as well. So breaking down some of the sunscreen details a little bit. Filter wise, again, this is a European sunscreen, so they're able to use some of those good filters. This specifically has Uvinol A+ for UVA protection, Uvinol T150 for the UVB part of the range, TriAsorB, which is that new filter that's claiming broad spectrum, very broad spectrum across the entirety of the UV spectrum, as well as getting into visible light to offer some blue light protection. And then you have TriAsorB S as well, which is just another really good broad spectrum UV filter. So you're getting a lot of protection, a lot of bump ups across the entirety of that UV spectrum, extending into that blue light part of the spectrum. So some tea on the TriAsorB filter. So it's been in the works, as I mentioned, for a minute now. There's been a lot of research around it. I think the patent for this itself is like already 10 years old. This is the first sunscreen we're seeing that's using it. Some details on it is that I'm under the impression that this is a hybrid filter, meaning it's organic by composition, meaning that it has carbon in its structure, but it functions kind of like a mineral sunscreen filter in that it not only absorbs most of the UV that comes in contact with it, but it does also reflect a small portion of that as well. Not only that, but it also is an insoluble particle that is suspended in the sunscreen as well. I'll have the reference for some of this information down in the description box if you are interested in it. A little bit more to see about the TriAsorB filter though is that there was a little bit of controversy upon the announcement and the launch of this sunscreen, just because basically a study came out in the French news that octocrylene is now a little bit of a problematic ingredient, because if left for longer than the shelf life of a year, the PAO of sunscreen, octocrylene starts to break down into benzophenone, which is a potentially problematic ingredient if seen in too high of concentrations, which the amount of benzophenone that octocrylene degrades into doesn't get anywhere near that amount. Basically, the scientists who did this study, did this research, made this announcement are also tied to Pierre Fabre, who is behind Avene, which is behind the sunscreen. And when the sunscreen launched specifically in France, one of the big marketing claims around it was that it was octocrylene free. There's a little bit of controversy that the study was released as a way of building some hype around this. And so that in itself is a little bit of a conflict of interest. Everywhere else this was launched though, again, I got this in Spain, looking at it on the Boots website here in the UK, that octocrylene free claim isn't mentioned or used at all. There's some issue with how it was basically marketed in the same vein as like EWG clean, beauty certified kind of situation, when it's a lot of fear mongering around that and a lot of exaggeration around that. Beauty Alley has a much better explanation about that. Links are below. But aside all that, very simple formulation. Glycerin is the only humectant in this, and you got a lot of emollients, which leads me to my next part, which is the application and my experience with the product. So for day one, what I did was simple skincare. I moisturized with the gel moisturizer, took my 1/4 teaspoon, and I worked half of that into half of my face, neck, and ear, my one ear. Let it set down just to see if there'd be any white casts. Hybrid filters kind of get kind of weird in that regard. But as you can see on screen, pretty much initially upon massaging into my face, looks beautiful, melts in right away, no white cast issues. So then I work into the half of my face, let it set down, go on top with makeup, and go about my day. The tea with this is that it's emollient. So even right after just the general application of this, I felt it was shiny and greasy a little bit, but I didn't have an issue necessarily with the makeup just because makeup applied nicely on top of it. I pressed powder in. For the most part, it looked good. Once I get past the like 7-hour mark though, I get greasy, and I start seeing the makeup start to really break up and dissipate in not a very attractive way. I thought that, well, I moisturized today. This is a moisturizing emollient texture. I'm not gonna moisturize tomorrow. So for day 2, I repeated the test again, did just some hydrators. This is my moisturizer. Set this, which setting this looks really good on the skin. But then I went on top with my makeup just to have some more insurance with oil absorbance, make sure I'm not going to be as shiny as I was on the first day. Makeup went on okay as well, and I got a good amount of wear out of the sunscreen. Again, I think if you have more oily skin, based on how you prep your skin and how you wear the sunscreen, you're gonna have a better experience. But this is also the day that I reapply the sunscreen. And this is where, with no fail yet, hybrid sunscreens fall a little bit short. The application of a hybrid sunscreen on makeup, just it's very radiant. This was very emollient. It wasn't a good texture for that, but also it just like sits on top of the makeup. So you look not only really shiny, but also there's like this weird cast on you that makes you look a little bit more neutral. I would not recommend this for reapplication on top of makeup, just for those reasons alone. But if it wasn't for that, if you set this and go on top of makeup, you're gonna have a fairly decent experience if you have more oily skin, I think. So then day 3 was the day that I was trying this with just a bare face, no makeup. Put it on, there's no white cast, so it looks good, but I mainly want to do that just to see, hey, how it's going to work on the skin, but also in facial hair, hairline, eyebrows, and whatnot. But also if I reapply this on top of itself on bare skin, what it's going to look like as well. And the 2 main notes for that is that this is already a fairly emollient sunscreen. So after a couple hours, when I go to reapply this, my face is still very radiant, still very emollient. This isn't set down, but also it just kind of compounds that emolliency, and your face gets really greasy, your hands get really greasy. Even without reapplication, I will note that my neck was just very greasy. I would go like this and it'd be like an oil slick. Those issues of being really greasy, feeling kind of heavy on the skin are just exacerbated with reapplication. It's not my favorite vehicle or texture for that reason. Giving my experience, I'm going to refer back to Bonnie's review on her Beauty Alley website, and it's honestly pretty much in line with mine, except for she has more dry skin and she still felt like this is kind of greasy. She doesn't feel like it's a good fit for makeup application. And one thing I will agree with her and what she said is that this is not an everyday sunscreen necessarily. This is more of a heavy duty sunscreen. This is something that's going to be useful for going to the beach, or you're under very high exposure of UV rays in like the middle of the day. This is a little bit more heavy, a little bit too emollient for me, having oily skin. Having acne prone skin, I don't feel like it broke me out necessarily, but it's just, you feel it on the skin, it's very heavy. So if I were to wear this every day, especially in like a high humidity, like high heat summer day, this would be a disaster. But that being said, my overall thoughts on the product, is it Ramon recommended? I'm gonna argue yes, and here's why. First of all, this is 150 ml for 20 pounds. In my mind, fairly affordable, especially considering the fact that it is a new filter. I don't know if that's going to be like worth it enough to sell it to you, but it offers very good protection. If blue light protection matters to you, this is offering that. I don't know to what degree. I'm waiting to see if they like come out with some sort of scale or way of measuring what that's going to look like, in the same vein that we have like SPF, UVA PAPF, that kind of stuff, but for blue light, just because I would want to know, like, is there a quantifiable way of measuring that necessarily to gauge that level of protection? Does it matter? Yes. Is it something that I think is very much a big impact marketing tactic at this point in time as well? Yes. So that's why I'm like, I can only take a claim with a grain of salt. It is water resistant, which is something that's really good. And I find that if you want something more heavy duty, water resistance is going to give you that, especially even just on a more like daily basis. On a more daily basis, for me, this is a little bit too emollient, too rich, kind of heavy. Did I get it to work with makeup? Yes, but I don't always want to get sunscreens to work with makeup. I just want them to already work with makeup. This doesn't reapply very well to me, so this could be a good base layer and you can reapply with something more lightweight. Definitely recommend that. Brown skin friendly though. Yes, this works beautifully into the skin. This melts in. This is arguably one of the more elegant hybrid filter sunscreens I've used. It doesn't get weird in the hairline or anything until reapplication, but I also don't think I just really worked it in because it just did not feel fun. But overall for me, this is a very in the middle experience just because this is technically a face and body sunscreen. And the minute I see that body in there, I know it's going to be more moisturizing, more radiant, just because body sunscreens tend to do that. Black girl sunscreen is another example of that. This is arguably like the big sister for what black girl sunscreen is, just because better protection, more innovative filters, similar body feel, honestly. But I don't hate her. I'm hoping Avene can take that TriAsorB filter, not only just take this exact formula, but just make it more oily skin friendly. It would be a home run, like a hit for me, just because something like this that just is a little bit more matte, more oil controlling for a summer day would be amazing. So Avene, if you're watching, call me. That was my review of the brand new Avene Intense Protect SPF 50+ for face and body for very sensitive skin for those hot summer days. Let me know down below, are you interested in trying this out? What your thoughts on this new TriAsorB filter are? Have you tried this already and what your experience was? Also, let me know what other European sunscreens are you looking for me to review on the channel. I love your recommendations and they definitely are super useful for me to discover new sunscreens, new brands, new products. So also leave those down in the comments. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and notification bell so that you know when I post more skincare, sunscreen, and fancy related content on my channel. Please leave a thumbs up and thanks for watching, guys. Bye.